Rev up your engines!
Well, it looks like people are finally starting to wise up about the fantasy of electric cars. Lucid, that car company, just dropped $2.1 billion in value on the stock market last week, right? Now, one thing you got to understand is they do have some big backers. It's not going to disappear because the Saudis own the majority of it. The Saudis own over 60% of that company, so they got a lot of money. They can sit on it. It's not going to be like Carvana where it just implodes and goes down to like 7% of its value or even less. The Saudis have a lot of money, right? And they're going to keep pushing this Lucid company because they invested a bunch of money in it. It ain't just going to disappear overnight. It just shows the idea of starting up all these electric car startups of an unproven industry by companies that didn't make cars before. It's a real risky gamble. I mean, $2.1 billion down the toilet in 1 week because people are saying, hey, what are they making? Are they going to make money building these things? Is it going to be a profitable enterprise? Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea whatsoever. And now you see all their stocks are starting to... Tesla was starting to go... There's only so many people going to buy these cars. Which type of battery? Which type of charging stations? Are they going to be big cars? Little cars? How is it going to pan out? Nobody knows whatsoever. If you ask me, the smartest people are Toyota. They're kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what's happening. They can build electric cars if they wanted to, but they're kind of realizing maybe there isn't going to be that much of a market for it in the near future. So why throw all your eggs in one basket? With these electric car companies, all their eggs are in the electric basket. And if it fails, they'll go to their companies. And if you invest in them, there goes your money. So take my advice and stay far away from these people because probably with the coming recession, the crap's going to hit the fan, and a whole bunch of them are going to just go down the toilet when nobody buys anything, nobody's investing, and they make them, nobody's going to buy them. In the case of companies like Lucid, they hardly made any at all, so they haven't even really started up any kind of mass production of any sort, so who knows how far that'll go. With the one exception today, the Saudis own over 60% of it. They got so much money, they can sit on it and see what happens. Snoopy1476 says, should I buy my first car at age 46? I'm 46, single, no children, looking to buy a car. Toyota or Honda. I commute in New York City by train. I do like mid-size SUVs and hybrids. What make and model would you recommend? Should I buy new, used, or wait longer? If you've never owned a car and you're thinking about getting one, wait a while. Prices will eventually come down. They haven't come down yet, but they should come down to some extent. And since you're not going to be driving all that many miles, because this is going to be your first car and you commute on a train to work, get a nice, good used Toyota or a Honda. It doesn't matter. Pick whatever one you like, right? Because they can go 400,000 miles or more. So even if you buy one with 90,000 miles, it can still have tons of life because you're not going to be putting on 20,000 miles a year. I would wait if I were you because you don't know if you're going to do it or not. Prices are really high now and they got to come down. They're in fantasy world now. And with the interest rates going up, the prices of cars has to drop because people only care about monthly payments. So if the interest rate goes up, that makes the monthly payment go up. And the only way you can afford a certain monthly payment is if the price goes down. So the interest rate matches and it's still the same monthly price. You're either going to pay less interest and higher prices or higher interest and less price. And in your case, you haven't been driving for 46 years. I'm assuming you saved up some money. You could probably pay cash for a car. And then when the prices drop, you can get really good deals then because you're not dealing with idiots who are financing and trying to rip you off and make a profit off your back. Because you look at the banks, you have $1 million in a bank, they give you this tiny interest of $100 a year or something. Yeah, buy a used car, the interest rates, they'll be 15, 18%. It's absurd. It's a crazy world we live in. Maybe one day the economics will make sense, but I would wait if I were you because it seems to me it's going to make more sense in a year or two. If you can wait that long, you're in no hurry. You never drove before anyways. What the heck? Ahmad says, do I get oil sludge if I drive short distances? We got a 2019 Mustang EcoBoost. We drive at 8 miles to work and home. It's a 20-minute drive. Today it only has 11,500 miles. We change the oil and filter every 6 months, regardless of the mileage. Never skipped it. Can the car build up oil sludge because he's driving short distances? Not really. You're using full synthetic oil, and you're changing it every 6 months. No sludge is going to build up. Sludge is built up from dirty, old, worn-out oil that has to be really old and worn out. Now, back in the day, my grandfather's day, cars did sludge up a lot because they had non-detergent oil. And the sludge would just sludge on down wherever the oil was. The sludge would come on the bottom and make a mess, clog everything up, right? Well, we've been using detergent oil for decades now. And detergent keeps the oil in suspension so it doesn't go down to sludge. You change it every 6 months. You're not going to have any problems at all with any kind of buildup. Doesn't matter how you drive it. Modern oils are full synthetic full detergent oils. The dirt stays in suspension. The synthetic oil is pure. It can accept a lot more dirt than regular oil before it does any damage. And you're changing it every 6 months. So don't worry about it at all. It's not going to hurt anything. A news says, should I drive my 30-year-old car down the freeway at 100 miles an hour? I got a 93 Celica, 120,000 miles. Could it damage the engine? It's a Toyota, right? And generally, the Japanese cars will run the same, whether they're young or old. But when they're old and you're going 100 miles an hour, things that are worn are going to wear out faster. I personally wouldn't do that because I don't like blowing up engines. We had a Camry station wagon and gave it to my first son to drive it around, and he did that, driving 100 miles an hour, and then after that it started smoking and leaking oil that it didn't do in the first place, right? And I said, what have you been doing? He says, I just found this guy, we're going 100. I'm like, oh great, wear the car out I gave you, right? But luckily it was a Camry 4-cylinder with the same engine that thing had, so it did still run, leaked a little oil, but it still ran. I gave it to my other son, and then we ended up selling it to a girl who worked in California. She had a government job in California. She drove from Houston to California. As far as I know, she made it out there. She didn't call up and say, oh, gee, it didn't run. It was still going, so they can take a lot. But don't do it. You don't really want 30-year-old cars driving them 100 miles an hour because, one, it's not safe. Something might break. It's an old car, right? But two, you're going to wear everything out faster. And I'm assuming that it's probably an automatic transmission. If so, the transmission will probably wear out faster. But I mean, sure, car, your money, can do whatever you want. But I personally wouldn't do it because I wouldn't want to wear out a nice car like that. Well, things got so bad in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that a church bought a gas station. The gas station backs up on a church property, and it turns out all crackheads were there and shootings and all kinds of stuff. The church bought the gas station. If they're getting the gasoline business now, I don't know. As the people in the church said, we're trying to clean this up, give people hope and change their mindset. There's more to life than getting high. One person at a time. One block at a time. We can do it. So now the church owns the gas station. And they're calling the gas station the Lion's Den. And they're planning on putting a soul food restaurant inside too. 2 for 1. They got a gas station and a restaurant, right? Like people used to do. Market to people. They're hungry. They go in and eat. Hey, not a bad idea. You got a really ratty station going on. They bought it and they've taken it up. Urban renewal at a base. Pretty interesting in Minneapolis. The church bought the gas station and they're trying to turn their neighborhood around. Why not? Sounds like a good idea to me. There's so many abandoned gas stations in this country. You might as well do something useful with them. Right, here we go with wind power again. Shows how it doesn't work in England. In the last 40 hours in England, the UK wind power, which is the second largest in the world offshore, has gone from producing 16.4 gigawatts of electricity to, get this, only 0.4 gigawatts, because the wind's not blowing. You can't count on the wind. You don't know exactly how the wind is going to be blowing, where it's going to go. Well, this loss of power is the equivalent of turning off 14 nuclear power generating plants. Imagine if you lived where the power was all generated by the nuclear power and all of a sudden 14 of them just shut right down. Of course, it doesn't work, right? I mean, that's the problem. One of the problems with wind, I mean, there's lots of problems with wind, but one of them, it's not consistent at all. Around here in Rhode Island, I see them all the time. 3/4 of the time, the things aren't even spinning. They're just sitting there like this, not moving at all, not creating any kind of electricity. So as usual, their grid supplier, National Grid, says, hey, citizens, don't use so much electricity. We don't have much. The windmills aren't blowing. If you don't know how it works, then they have to buy electricity on the spot market. In some places, during this lull of the wind, people are paying 4 times as much for their electricity than they were when the wind was blowing. Boy, you'd really say wind power blows if you're paying 4 times as much for your electricity when they're not generating. Literally, it does blow. The price went from 384 pounds per megawatt hour to over 1,200 pounds per megawatt hour. That's a big difference. And guess what? You're going to be paying for it yourself. People think this stuff works. It doesn't work. They're still pouring billions in because, of course, we know England's relatively socialized, right? So the government runs a bunch of stuff. They don't know what the heck they're doing. So then everything gets screwed up and then they just add more taxes on top of it like they do in England to build more windmills that don't work. They're piling the money in. They don't stop and think, wait, this doesn't work. Let's try something else. Well, we already got money. Let's keep throwing good money after bad. Build more and more of these things, That's how it works when there's no relationship between the business angle of it and the government angle. They just think that they can build stuff because they believe that's the wave of the future, and then they find out, hey, the wave is not working too well. What do we do now? Well, we'll keep throwing money into it. What the heck? We've got contracts with those guys. They're legally binding. We got to fulfill them, It's how it always works. That's why you don't want the government running things. They don't have any idea what they're doing. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.